My parents said, "We'll help you take care of it," when I got pregnant at 15, then kicked me out the day I brought my baby home from the hospital. 7 years later, they showed up at my daughter's school in a Mercedes, started donating playground equipment and paying for field trips, then sued me for custody, claiming I was an unfit mother for raising her in a studio apartment while working night shifts at a diner. When I was 15, I had a boyfriend, and just like every other 15-year-old girl in the world, my boyfriend was toxic. Like, scream at you for interacting with a male teacher, then go through your phone toxic. So when he caught me going to the hospital to visit my godfather without telling him, he was determined to punish me. He told me the only way he'd let me get away with it was if I let him pop my cherry with no rubber. He said that would prove that I loved him, and I would have said no. But the anger in his eyes made me too scared of what would happen if I dared to refuse. So I said yes. Long story short, I got pregnant and never saw him again. I wish that was an exaggeration, but he blocked me on everything and transferred to a school across the country. I was so freaked out that I told my parents as soon as I found out. "We'll help you take care of it," was the first thing my mom said. Meanwhile, my dad just nodded quietly. I don't know why I believed them, but I did. And their words were the only reason I didn't get a baby unalive, because no one else wanted to come near me anymore. The entire school was calling me a W word, and they had spread rumors about Emmy trying to baby trap my ex-boyfriend. So I dropped out. All I had was my parents and everything they gave me, until I gave birth. Because instead of coming home to baby Anna's nursery, I came home to all of my stuff packed up into bags. I swear I thought they were pranking me, but then my mom said, "We're not cleaning up the mess you made." I looked over to my dad, who stood there with his arms crossed. "But I thought you said," "We just said that so you wouldn't terminate the pregnancy. But now we're done with you. Consider yourself disowned." I fell to the floor crying while baby Anna wept in my arms. I had nowhere to go, and instead of helping me drive somewhere, they retreated to their bedrooms and locked the door. I was shattered. That was my rock bottom. I ended up getting an Uber to my Aunt Becky's house, and she took me in. As soon as she showed me the bedroom, I crawled right in and fell asleep. I was still in the post-pregnancy state, and life felt like it was doomed. I woke up the next morning at 4:30 a.m. to Becky shaking me awake. "If you're staying here, then you have to follow the rules," was all she said before handing me a sweeping brush. "You have to do your fair share of everything. 2 hours of house chores minimum. You have to cook me 5 dinners a week. Showers are 5 minutes long max. And most importantly, if your baby wakes me up more than once in a week, I will kick you out." Well, it was either Aunt Becky's house or the streets, so I just nodded, ready to accept my new life of modern-day slavery. The next few years of my life were as bad as you'd expect. Every time Anna cried at night, adrenaline would pump through my blood, and sometimes I even had to sit with her in the front garden during winter. And Aunt Becky abused me in every way possible, so much so that it reminded me of my ex-boyfriend, and I only had one lifeline: a job at a 24-hour diner where the manager, Rosa, let me bring Anna during night shifts. She'd sleep in the break room while I served coffee to truckers and studied for my GED between orders. The day Anna turned 4, I finally had enough saved: $1,200 and a promise of a studio apartment from Rosa's cousin. I packed our things while Becky was at work. Not that there was much to pack. Anna's drawings, the teddy bear Rosa gave her, my GED certificate. That studio apartment was 400 square feet of heaven. On our first night, Anna and I ate McDonald's on the floor and she said, "Mama, can we be loud here?" When I nodded, she squealed at the top of her lungs, then looked at me with wonder when no one yelled at us. That's when they showed up. I was at a pickup, helping Anna carry her solar system project to the car, when I saw them, my parents, standing next to a Mercedes, looking like they'd stepped out of a catalog. My dad wore a suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. Suddenly, my mother was walking toward us. "Hello, sweetheart," she said, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Anna with tears in her eyes. "You must be Anna." I shoved past them and practically ran to the car with Anna holding my hand. And the moment I saw them drive away too, I knew they'd be back. Parents who disown you for 7 years don't suddenly grow hearts. They grow strategies. Within a week, expensive toys appeared at Anna's school. Her teacher mentioned generous grandparents had paid for the entire class field trip. Other parents started looking at me differently, whispering about the teen mom whose wealthy parents were trying to help. The legal papers came 3 months later. Their lawyer had been building a case, documenting my night shifts, my studio apartment, my GED instead of a proper education. Meanwhile, they'd been playing the perfect grandparents at Anna's school. The principal called me in for a meeting where she gently suggested I should be grateful for their involvement. I sat there gripping my purse straps while she explained how my parents had donated new playground equipment and offered to fund the after-school program Anna attended. I drove straight to Rosa's diner after that meeting. She took one look at my face and poured me coffee without asking. I spread the legal papers across the counter, my hands shaking as I pointed to each accusation. Unfit living conditions, inadequate supervision, educational neglect. They'd twisted every sacrifice I'd made into evidence against me. Rosa studied the papers while I wiped down tables, needing to keep my hands busy. The dinner rush came and went. Anna colored in her corner booth, occasionally showing me her drawings of rainbows and stick figures. Every time I looked at her, my chest tightened. They wanted to take her from me. That night, I called every legal aid number I could find. Most went to voicemail. The ones that answered told me there were waiting lists, income requirements, paperwork to file. One receptionist sighed when I mentioned custody and wealthy grandparents. She didn't need to say what we both knew: money talks in family court. I started documenting everything. Every gift they sent to school, every interaction, every whispered conversation I overheard at pickup. Other parents had started inviting Anna to play dates, but their real interest was obvious. They wanted to know about my parents, about the Mercedes, about why someone with money would let their daughter live like this. The worst part was watching Anna's confusion. She'd come home talking about the nice lady who bought ice cream for her whole class, the man who knew her name and said she looked looked just like her mama. I'd kneel down and remind her about stranger danger, but how could I explain that the strangers were her grandparents? 2 weeks after the papers arrived, they escalated. I found Anna's teacher waiting by my car after school, holding an envelope. Inside were photos, professional ones of my parents with Anna at school events I didn't even know about, the spring concert where I'd been working, the field day when I'd had a double shift. In every photo, they stood where I should have been. I confronted the principal the next morning. She shifted uncomfortably, explaining that grandparents were always welcome at school events. When I pointed out they weren't listed as emergency contacts or approved for pickup, she mentioned their generous donations again. The message was clear. Money had already opened doors I couldn't close. Rosa introduced me to other single moms at the diner. They'd come in during slow hours, and we'd share stories while our kids played together. One had fought her ex's parents for years. Another had lost custody temporarily before getting her son back. They taught me about guardian ad litems, about court evaluators, about how to present myself to impress people who judge my worth as a mother in 15-minute increments. I practiced my story in the mirror, how I'd finished my GED while working nights, how Anna had never missed a doctor's appointment or a meal, how we read together every night, how she was ahead in reading, how her teachers praised her behavior. I learned to quantify love in ways the court would understand. My parents kept pushing. Expensive clothes appeared in Anna's cubby. When I donated them, new ones replaced them. They enrolled her in activities without asking, then documented when I couldn't get her there because of work. They painted a picture of a struggling mother too proud to accept help, while I saw the trap closing around us. The breaking point came when Anna got sick at school, just a stomach bug, but the nurse called me first. I was in the middle of a shift, 40 minutes away. By the time I arrived, my parents were there. They'd somehow become emergency contacts. My mother held Anna's hair back while she threw up, and my father talked quietly with the nurse about proper care. I scooped Anna into my arms, but she was too weak to protest. My mother followed me to the parking lot, speaking for the first time since that day at pickup. She talked about Anna deserving better, about private schools and music lessons, about opportunities I couldn't provide. I buckled Anna into her booster seat while my mother listed everything money could buy. That night, I held Anna while she slept off the fever. Her small hand gripped mine, and I whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. I'd been so focused on surviving that I'd forgotten what thriving looked like. Maybe that's what they were counting on, that I'd see their offer as rescue instead of robbery. I started preparing for war. Every paper from the past 7 years went into labeled folders. Pay stubs showing consistent employment, rent receipts proving stable housing, photos of Anna's birthday parties, small but full of love, report cards showing her progress. I built a paper trail of adequate parenting, knowing it might not be enough. The other moms helped me practice for the evaluation. They drilled me on questions about discipline, nutrition, education plans. They taught me phrases like age-appropriate expectations and consistent routine. I learned to translate my life into court speak, to make love sound logical and measurable. My parents' lawyer sent more documents, depositions from Anna's teachers praising their involvement, financial statements showing what they could provide, photos of their house with its spare bedrooms and big backyard. They built their case on everything I couldn't give her, while I built mine on everything I already had. The custody evaluation appointment arrived faster than expected. I dressed Anna in her favorite purple dress and braided her hair the way she liked it, with the little butterfly clips Rosa had given her. My hands trembled as I tied her shoes. The evaluator's office sat in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. I carried Anna inside, her small hand squeezing mine. The waiting room had toys scattered across a worn carpet. Anna immediately gravitated toward a dollhouse while I filled out forms asking about our daily routines, medical history, educational plans. My handwriting looked shaky against the crisp white paper. Other parents sat around us, some alone, some with lawyers. I recognized the exhaustion in their faces. The evaluator called us back after 20 minutes. She introduced herself to Anna first, crouching down to her level. Anna hid behind my leg initially, then slowly warmed up when the woman complimented her butterfly clips. They played with blocks while I answered questions about our living situation, my work schedule, Anna's development milestones. I watched Anna stack towers and knock them down, completely unaware that this stranger would help decide our future. The evaluator took notes on everything: how Anna asked permission before taking more blocks, how she shared with another child who wandered over, how she looked to me for reassurance when uncertain. Every interaction became evidence. After the appointment, I drove to the legal aid office Rosa had recommended. The waiting room overflowed with people clutching manila folders like life preservers. I signed in and found 2 plastic chairs in the corner. Anna colored in her activity book while we waited. 3 hours passed before they called my name. The paralegal who reviewed my case looked barely older than me. She flipped through my documentation, occasionally asking for clarification. When she reached the photos of my parents at Anna's school events, she paused. I explained about the donations, the surprise enrollments, the calculated generosity. She made notes, but her expression remained neutral. She handed me a stack of forms to complete and a list of additional documents to gather: birth certificates, vaccination records, proof of income for the past 2 years. The list seemed endless. She explained that I qualified for limited assistance, meaning they could help with paperwork, but I'd largely be representing myself. My parents would have a full legal team. I spent the next weeks gathering everything they requested. Rosa adjusted my schedule so I could visit government offices during business hours. I stood in line at the health department for vaccination records, waited at the Social Security office for official documents, made copies of everything in triplicate. Anna came with me everywhere, eating snacks from my purse and napping in waiting room chairs. The other single moms from the diner became my unofficial support team. They took turns watching Anna when I had appointments she couldn't attend. They shared their own custody battle stories, warning me about tricks lawyers might use. One mother, Maria, had lost custody for 6 months before getting her daughter back. She taught me to document every everything in a composition notebook, dating each entry. My parents escalated their presence at Anna's school. They volunteered for reading time, chaperoned field trips, attended every single event. The principal started sending home flyers about activities specifically when they knew I'd be working. Anna came home talking about the special lunch her grandparents had brought for her entire class, complete with cupcakes from an expensive bakery. I found Anna's teacher after school one day, organizing papers at her desk. I asked about limiting my parents' involvement, explaining the custody situation. She looked uncomfortable, mentioning the new computers they donated to the classroom. She suggested that having involved grandparents was a blessing many children didn't have. I left feeling more isolated than before. The court-appointed mediator scheduled our first session for a Tuesday morning. I arranged coverage for my shift and dressed in my only professional outfit, a black skirt suit I'd found at Goodwill. Rosa had helped me practice what to say, how to present myself as stable and capable despite my circumstances. My parents arrived with their lawyer, a woman in a designer suit who immediately took control of the conversation. They presented their proposal, full custody with generous visitation rights for me. They'd prepared a financial package showing private school tuition, college savings, medical insurance, extracurricular activities. Everything I couldn't provide laid out in glossy folders. I presented my own case with shaking hands, the stable home I'd maintained for 4 years, Anna's excellent progress reports from school, the community of support I'd built, the bond between mother and daughter that no amount of money could replace. The mediator took notes, asking occasional questions about my work schedule and childcare arrangements. My mother spoke about their concern for Anna's future. She described finding out about their granddaughter through mutual acquaintances, their shock at our living conditions, their desire to provide opportunities. She painted a picture of rescue, carefully avoiding any mention of the 7 years they'd pretended we didn't exist. The mediator suggested a graduated plan where my parents could have scheduled visits while I retained custody. Their lawyer immediately rejected this, insisting Anna needed stability and resources I couldn't provide. They produced photos of their home, the bedroom they'd prepared for Anna, the private school they'd already interviewed with. I left that session feeling like I'd already lost. My composition notebook full of Anna's milestones seemed pitiful compared to their professional presentation. But Maria reminded me that judges had seen it all before. They knew the difference between love and money, between providing and buying. My parents started showing up at the diner during my shifts. They'd sit in a corner booth, ordering coffee and watching. Anna would wave from her coloring spot, confused why I kept her at our usual table instead of letting her visit. Rosa started seating them in a different section, but their presence hung over every shift. One night, Anna asked why the nice people from school kept coming to see us. I struggled to explain, finally telling her they were family we hadn't seen in a long time. She accepted this with 4-year-old simplicity, more interested in her chicken nuggets than complex adult relationships. But I knew the questions would get harder. The custody evaluator scheduled a home visit. I spent days preparing, deep cleaning our tiny apartment, organizing Anna's corner with her books and toys displayed neatly. I bought fresh flowers from the grocery store, baked cookies to show I could provide homemade touches. The morning of the visit, I realized how desperate it all looked. The evaluator arrived precisely on time, clipboard in hand. She walked through our space, taking notes on everything. The safety locks on cabinets, the educational posters I'd hung on the walls, the schedule I'd posted showing our daily routine. Anna proudly showed off her drawings taped to the refrigerator, explaining each one in detail. She asked to see where Anna slept. I showed her the small alcove I'd converted into Anna's room, with curtains for privacy and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Anna demonstrated how she could reach her bookshelf and toy box without help, clearly proud of her independence. The evaluator noted everything. During the interview portion, Anna played nearby while I answered questions about discipline, nutrition, emergency plans. I'd prepared for weeks but still stumbled over some answers. When asked about backup childcare if I was sick, I mentioned Rosa and the other diner moms. When asked about enrichment activities, I talked about library story time and free museum days. After she left, I found Anna arranging her stuffed animals for a tea party. She invited me to join, serving imaginary tea in plastic cups. We played until bedtime, her laughter filling our small space. I tucked her in that night wondering if these simple moments would be enough to compete with everything my parents could offer. The next court date arrived with another thick envelope from my parents' lawyer. They'd hired a child development expert who'd observed Anna at school without my knowledge. The report highlighted concerns about her social development, suggesting she needed more structured activities and peer interaction than I could provide. I met with the legal aid paralegal again, going over their latest filing. She helped me prepare a response, but warned that the expert testimony would carry weight. I needed my own evidence of Anna's healthy development. She suggested getting letters from Anna's teacher, doctor, anyone who'd seen us together regularly. I spent the following days collecting support letters. Rosa wrote about the years she'd watched me raise Anna, the dedication she'd witnessed. Anna's pediatrician confirmed she met all developmental milestones. This mom's strength is incredible. The way she turned that tiny apartment into a real home for Anna, with those glow-in-the-dark stars and her own little space behind curtains, shows pure love. Even some regular customers from the diner offered to write character references. Each letter felt like a small shield against my parents' attacks. My parents' next move targeted my work schedule directly. They filed a motion expressing concern about Anna spending nights at the diner, calling it an inappropriate environment for a child. They included photos taken through the window, showing Anna asleep in the break room while I worked. The images looked damaging out of context. The mediation session grew more hostile. Their lawyer questioned every aspect of my parenting,